Hi everyone, this is Grammar here once again, and today I have for you borrow versus lend. Now a lot of people come up to me and say, Gramm, this seems like an easy topic, but it's difficult. I always get it wrong. Well, I have good news for you. It is easy. Let me show you how. First, here I have a question. Can I borrow your car? If you notice, the receiver here, which is I, is before the verb, which is borrow. So if I have the receiver before the verb, I'm going to use borrow. Can I borrow your car? Here we have another example. Can I borrow John's book? Once again, we have the receiver before the verb. So once again, the verb to use is borrow. Can I borrow John's book? Okay. Okay, now let's take a look at the verb lend. Here we have a sentence. I can lend you my car. In this case, we have I. I is the giver. So if I mention the giver before the verb, then the verb to use is lend. So once again, I can lend you my car. And also, if you notice here, we have you after the verb. So that is the receiver. So if I have my giver, and then the verb, and then the receiver, the verb I'm going to use is going to be lend. So once again, I can lend you my car. Be careful, you don't want to lend anybody your car. Okay, let's take a look at another example. John can lend you his car. Once again, we have the giver, John, before the verb. So this verb must be lend. And then once again, here we have the receiver after the verb. So therefore, this sentence, John can lend you his car, is the way it should be. Okay? Okay, now some people think that we're going to use borrow only for questions. That's not true. Once again, the key is who you mention before the verb. So here we have a question. Can I borrow your car? Again, remember, I is the receiver, so I have the receiver before the verb. So the verb that we're going to use is going to be borrow. So once again, can I borrow your car? The answer to that could be, if you're a really good friend, could be, yes, you can borrow my car. Here we see once again that you is the receiver. And I have the receiver before my verb, so that verb must be borrow. Yes, you can borrow my car. So once again, please remember, it's not whether it's a question or a sentence. It depends on if you mention the receiver first or the giver first. In this case, the receiver comes first, so we're going to use borrow. Okay, back to the verb lend. Just like some people think that borrow is exclusively for questions, we saw it's not true, some people also think that lend is exclusively for sentences. Now we're going to see that that is not true as well. Okay, here we have a question. Can you lend me your book? Once again, we mention the giver, you, before the verb, so the verb should be lend. And remember, in this case, we have the receiver after the verb. So, can you lend me your book is the correct structure for this question. Now, let's think about a possible answer to that question. Sure, I can lend you my book. Again, we have the giver first, I, because I'm going to give. Okay? So the verb that we use should be lend. Lend who? Lend you. You're the receiver. I'm the giver, you're the receiver. So, sure, I can lend you my book. So once again, as we can see, the trick here is not whether we're talking about a question or a sentence. It's who you mention first. If you mention the giver before the verb that you're going to use is going to be lend. And as we saw earlier, if you mention the receiver before the verb that you're going to use is borrow. So this is not difficult. It's just hard work. It's practice, practice, practice. And remember, English is easy peasy, super breezy.